Welcome into Locked On Knicks, and it's time to overreact. The Knicks win 131-114 over the Indiana Pacers on Friday night. Gavin, what are we talking about? This big blowout extravaganza of a preseason win for the Knicks.
Obi Toppin, elite three-point marksman. RJ Barrett, is he even better? Some struggles from Cam Reddish and Julius Randle playing the right way. All that and more right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. We wanted to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you guys making us a part of your daily routine. I'm Alex Wolfe. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. He is Gavin Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster, and we are breaking down the Knicks 131-114, absolute monster blowout of a win against the Indiana Pacers on Friday night. Gavin, I think we can pretty safely say that Obi Toppin was the big story in this game. The first thought that ran through my mind while watching him do this, particularly that sequence, I mean, of course, he had maybe my favorite preseason play of all time, the through the legs dunk and then stare down and point at TJ McConnell, who's one of my most hated players in the NBA. So that was awesome. I was very happy to see him take a personal vendetta against McConnell, who's just an annoying little gnat of a player. But then the sequence where he had two leak out dunks within 15 seconds of game time of one another, a quick dunk and then a nice little turnover for the Knicks on the other end. He leaks out again, gets another dunk. That was not his only dunks of the night either. I mean, he had so many, it almost got hard to count. It felt a lot to me like if you're playing NBA 2K and you turn the team strategy like way up to leak out in transition, like don't go after offensive boards, leak out in transition, try to force turnovers, whatever. It was just a lot of that and a lot of pace from the Knicks. And I mean, this goes up and down the roster, but Obi sort of embodies the ideal of what you want in pace in the NBA, I feel like. What did you think about Obi's amazing performance, which I didn't even get to the box score numbers. He finished with an overall line of 24 points, 10 of 14 shooting, 4 of 7 from 3. Also had a steal and 2 blocks in the game.
Yeah, I mean, the shooting honestly stood out to me more than anything else because that has always been the question with him. I mean, if he can hit threes at a 36% clip on fairly high volume, I think we're in agreement that he's a 20-plus point per game scorer in the NBA. And if he can't make threes, then he's probably a bench guy in the NBA. And And maybe in different contexts, like it could be a little bit more complicated than that. But to me, it's always been a pretty simple conversation with him. And right now it looks like he can really shoot threes. And to me, the greatest indicator of that, even more so than that they went in, is that Tom Thibodeau, this was something Tom Piccolo pointed out in the Knicks Film School newsletter today. He was designing in that second quarter, the play where Obi like curled around on the left wing, caught an inbounds, set his feet and drained a three. That's Tom Thibodeau designing an out-of-bounds play for Obi Toppin to shoot a three. We're talking about a player who 2 years ago, the coach would cringe if he shot a three with no one within 10 feet of him. And now they're saying, yeah, you know what we got to do? Let's use him like Ray Allen or Kevin Durant and run him through screens to get him a three. And the crazy part about that shot was Obi's footwork. It looked so incredibly clean. The way he was able to instantaneously upon catching the ball, get his feet set, orient his body towards the basket. Any lingering lack of centricity was I don't know if that's a word, was eliminated in midair. It was just a picture perfect shot. And I mean, yeah, and then we saw like he started like feeling himself. Like he tried like a 26 or 27 footer later on in the second quarter. Then in the fourth quarter, he got an inch of room and the defense gave him somewhere around a 25-foot shot, maybe a 26-foot shot straight on, and he nailed it. If he's gonna shoot like that, and we can talk about this later on, or we could have the conversation right now. It's this interesting thing, right? Where I was getting into this with someone on Twitter, but I think by and large, Julius Randle is doing everything we could possibly ask from him this preseason. Like, he's making good decisions. He's playing the right way. And if Obi Toppin's this kind of shooter, it might not matter. He might still be the better option, but it certainly is maybe the single biggest thing I'm watching the rest of this preseason and the first 10 to 15 games of the season. How real is this jump shot from Obi Toppin?
I mean, I think the other thing we have to consider is, like, would this distribution of minutes, and, like, so there was 6 minutes left on the table between Obi and Julius, with the last few minutes not, featuring them because of it being a preseason game. But let's just say that you redistribute those few minutes between the two of them. So there was 6 minutes left over. So if Julius ends with 25 minutes and Obi ends with 23 minutes, like, if Tibbs is going to insist on this being, those two not being able to play together at any time ever, does that then become an equitable split of minutes? And, like, would Julius be okay with that? Is that going to make him shut down again and be, feel disrespected or whatever? Like, is that going to be enough for Obi, like, with how well he's playing? Like, you would love to see him play more like 30 minutes or more, especially when, I actually do give Tibbs credit. And of course it's a preseason game again, but yeah, it's sad. Like, I feel the need to give him credit for this because he's so often treated preseason like it's the regular season. But, like, he let Obi cook and left him out there when he was playing well. And, we saw so many times last year where it seemed like there was such a dedication to getting Julius his minutes that Obi would sometimes be scorching hot and get taken out of the game. And, like, it was, almost like he's like a sword that a blacksmith is working on. Then all of a sudden you plunge him into the cold water and it just done. There goes that nice red hot thing you had going on there. And, I don't know. It is an interesting question going forward because if Obi could play like he did in this game, you're right. Like, we watched that first game and we were like, oh crap, like, the jumper doesn't look quite there. Like, it looks like he maybe regressed a little bit or something. Like, I don't know, but it looked rough that first preseason game. And then in this one, to your point, so smooth. He's just catching it, like, one fluid motion, jacking up the three there. He was shooting from, like, a few feet beyond the 3-point line a couple times too, which normally it seems like even just shooting, like, toe on the 3-point line practically is sometimes a struggle for him, even from the corners, the shortest spot on the floor. But in this game, he was like, nah, screw it. I'll shoot like Steph Curry range, from like 4 or 5 feet behind the 3-point line here on the elbow. Like, that's totally cool. So I don't know. You're right. This is going to make things difficult going into this year. And preseason is one thing. Regular season is going to be another. Like, and it's tough too, because it's not like last year where Julius was just straight up not playing a good team style of basketball and Obi was. They're kind of both filling their roles well, but I just think ultimately Obi's doing stuff better right now and ultimately has the better skill set that meshes with a lot of the other guys that he's on the floor with, like being able to get inside and finish there, being able to, shoot the three more consistently if he can do that, which is the big swing skill for either him or Randle, quite frankly, because it seems obvious that the Knicks are definitely playing a little more of a pace and space style of ball this year. So we'll see how these next two preseason games play out, but nothing is going to be easy about this decision as it pertains to the two power forwards on the roster, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think it is interesting to note what Tibbs said about Obi post game. I mean, he was extremely complimentary, which I guess circles back to what we heard from Mark Berman when we had him on at the end of the season, where he said, look, like, Tibbs saw what Obi could do those last 6 or 7 games of the year, and he on some level, and again, this all comes with the giant grain of salt that it doesn't mean anything until the regular season starts. But allegedly, Tibbs was like, yeah, you know what? I screwed up. I got to remedy this next year if I'm going to keep my job and this is going to work. So this was Tibbs on Obi. He said he brings life into everything he does. He walks into the building and there is a bounce to him. He energizes the team and you can feed off that. But when he's playing defense and getting out and we can play fast, everything is fast with him. Tibbs added that guys like playing with Toppin because he doesn't overhandle and that he's worked hard on his defense, although, quote unquote, there is still a way to go. RJ also added that Obi is looking more poised this year. So it's clear, and it's weird. Despite everything we've critique Tom Thibodeau with Emmanuel Quickley and Obi Toppin, he's always said good stuff about them. And look, not in the sense that like a coach is going to come on and trash his players in a press conference, but he's even going back to last year, he said areas that they need to improve, but he's generally pretty glowing about these guys. And I think the gap that always exists between us and Tibbs is that I think what Tibbs is leaving out is some of these quotes, and not even necessarily right now, but in the past more so, is, okay, how will IQ, how will Obi, like, sure, they're great. They're great at what they do. Will they hold up going against star point guards every night or star power forwards every night? And I think it's telling again that he's specifically singling out Obi's defense, because as we know with Tibbs, a lot of times, maybe less so at the point guard position, but at the bigs position, that's ultimately his barometer of if someone's ready to play or not, which I know is a lot of our frustration with Randle last year, that like, okay, but this guy isn't really defending either. But if he feels like Obi is closer to whatever he felt like he could get from Randle at his best, that could be the swing factor in them getting closer to equal minutes.
Well, you know what? That actually makes me think of something that maybe we should talk about on the next segment, which was we were talking about Obi's offense and how great he was in transition and the three-point shooting and everything, without even really talking about his defense, where I thought he actually showed a decent little amount of rim protection and stuff like that in this game that maybe could be this swing factor that finally, especially if Tibbs believes in his defense now, could maybe swing them towards maybe having Julius and Obi play together. I don't know. I don't want to be too crazy here, but I should first, just before we get into that in the next segment, remind everybody that today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn. And, you guys know when you're looking to post a job, it can be really tough, but every new potential hire could feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. And you want to be 100% certain you have access to the best qualified job candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. And I can't really speak to hiring on LinkedIn, but I can certainly speak, as someone who has a day job other than this. I can speak to looking on LinkedIn somewhat often. You always want to keep your options open. And I always find from a hiree perspective, not a hirer perspective, that LinkedIn does the best job of pointing me towards the best jobs for me. And likewise, if you're looking to hire somebody, they can do the best job of pointing you towards the right candidates for your jobs. I don't know if it's the algorithm or what, but they are fantastic at that. So all you have to do, you add your job and you add the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile, and you can spread the word that you're hiring. There's simple tools like screening questions, which make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. And, you guys want to finish the year strong, especially if you run a small business, and adding the right team member can really help you do that. So LinkedIn Jobs can definitely be the deciding factor of how well your company finishes out the year. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, and we're back to talk more Knicks. And Gavin, we were initially only going to talk about Obi for the first part of the show, but you know what? I'm going to talk about him for the second part too, or at least start this segment this way, because I was really encouraged by his defense in this one. You brought up that Tibbs quote where, if Tibbs is starting to kind of turn the corner on Obi and his defense, I always got the feeling last year when Tibbs would make the little sort of snide comments like, everybody loves the backup quarterback till he's starting, that sort of crap.
Yeah.
I always got the feeling that in relation to Obi, that sort of meant that he thought like, well, yeah, he's getting dunked. Well, and he also had the quote about like, all you see is the highlight dunks. You don't see the stuff that I see. And I always got the impression that that was aimed at his defense. But I mean, I think Obi's been way better on defense his first 2 years in the NBA than we ever thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
But this game, and again, caveat that it's preseason and all this other stuff, but I really came away impressed with his rim protection. Like specifically, I think that was the biggest thing that really stood out to me. Like he was contesting shots at the rim consistently. He got, the couple blocks that way. He also just altered a bunch of shots. And then, I mean, he was doing like it was I didn't bring this up to the first segment, but his big through the legs dunk was almost like what we used to call the Porzingis, quote unquote, which is the block and then the 3-pointer at the other end. He did like the supersized version of that, which was the block and then a through the legs dunk at the other end. But every time he was contesting something, he was leaking out in transition immediately. So like he would get the contest, force the miss, and then by the time you blinked and looked, he would be past half court already, getting ready to potentially receive an outlet pass from whoever it may be on the floor. I think we've seen from Julius so far that he's been really good with pushing the pace, which is something that he really needs to do if he wants to stick with this team and, be part of what they're doing, because every other player is clearly trying to push at all times right now. If Julius is willing to do that with how talented of a passer he is and how good of a rebounder he is, and if Obi can show that he can defend a bit at the rim and force misses, from guys there by closing in hard and, being able to alter shots without fouling, what's the argument against playing them together at this point? Like, that is a perfect complementary skill set where you have someone who can contest at the rim and force the miss, the guy in Julius who's the big body rebounder, who's a really talented rebounder in that respect, especially ones off of forced misses like that. Like we see that with Mitch all the time, where he's, Mitch can force the miss and then Julius is good at corralling the board and, starting the offense. And then you have Obi who, I love Mitch, but unlike Mitch, will run and be halfway down the court by the time that Julius even grabs the ball. Why is that not a perfect combo? Like, I really hope that maybe this is our turning point where we can see Tibbs try this out. I'm not going to hold my breath because he was so dismissive of it from second one this year. And he also seems very intent on never admitting that he's wrong, either with words or through his actions. So I feel like he's going to stick to his guns and still never play them together. But I think they should be at this point, because I think that it's worth exploring. And if you can fit them together for 6-7 minutes a game, that could potentially solve all your minutes issues between the two of them this year, if they could just share the floor for 6 or 7 minutes a game together.
Yeah, well, let's look at the other side of that coin in Julius Randle, who got 22 minutes in this game, 15 points, 7 boards, 4 assists. Shot very, very well from 2 in this game. He was 3 for 4 from 2, but it was just 1 for 7 from 3. Did make up for it though with those assists, with those rebounds, going 6 for 7 from the foul line. And I thought for the most part, for the second game in a row, again, and anyone who wants to come at us, feel free. Very, very willing to eat crow on Julius Randle, because it makes my life a lot happier when he's playing the right way. I thought he played exceptionally well and basically did exactly what I want him to do for the second straight game in terms of matchup hunting and really picking his spots on terms of when to isolate and then what he's trying to do. He was isolating to pass a lot in this game, unless a scoring opportunity was just right there. Like one of the very first plays of the game, he had Buddy Hield on a switch, attacked decisively, got a closeout, and then it was just a rapid fire pass out to RJ Barrett for 3. Easy peasy. Made another really good play, like driving and kicking to Cam Reddish. Had another one to RJ where he drove into a Euro step and then threw it out to RJ Barrett for 3. And then it was his pace just running the court. Another one that stood out, and it felt like that West Coast swing last season we keep referencing with Randle. Mitchell Robinson knocked the ball out of a Pacers offensive player's hand. Brunson scooped it up and then just threw a bomb to Julius down the court. I almost had to do a double take. I was like, is that Obi in there? No, that's Julius racing down the court. And then some of the twos he got, it was nice to see that when he was taking those fadeaway mid-range jumpers that he likes, they were coming closer to the rim than they were a lot of last year. And honestly, a lot closer to the rim than they were for a lot of 2021, where a ton of those shots did come closer to the 3-point line. He hit one that was 6 or 7 feet away from the basket. And when nothing was there, instead of trying to force the issue, he would get the ball back to Jalen Brunson pretty quickly. So there was just, I think, everything to like about his mentality in this game. I still just have a lot of issues when he's on the floor about what the spacing is. Like there was one play I posted a screenshot of on Twitter where he was just stationed at the elbow and Brunson was kind of half trying to isolate, but there was just zero room because either way he went, Julius's defender was right there to come over and help. And when you see him go 1 for 7 from 3 on the night, on one hand, I'm like, all right, I don't really want him taking that many threes. On another hand, I'm like, if this is going to work, he's going to have to space out to three constantly. He's going to have to put up a bunch of them a game, and he's going to have to hit them not at the 40% he hit 2 years ago, but right around 35% for this to be a functional offense. If not, again, you're going to have to look at Obi Toppin with that starting lineup, because I think against better defenses that are more locked in, a little bit more prepped, playing a little bit harder with better personnel, this team is going to have some issues scoring in the half court with Julius, Brunson, RJ, and Mitch all on the court together.
Yeah, I feel that. Like, I've been pleasantly surprised with Julius so far this year too. And I actually, you know, I'm with you where he's using the ISOing well at this point. You know, like that is a valuable skill to have with a player on your team. You know, I've been saying that all offseason too, where it's like, it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a guy like Julius that can do the, like, you know, almost like Carmelo impression that he's been doing the last couple of years, you know, where it's like a guy that could just face up, hit a couple jab steps, you know, break down a guy off the dribble, whatever, or just like hit a guy with a couple little fakes and then just put up a jumper and have a decent shot of it going in. I worry a bit about Julius's 3-point shooting, that it hasn't seemed to recover during this preseason so far. Like in this game, he had some really ugly misses. You know, there was just like, I mean, he was 1 for 7 total, so that kind of tells the story. Like, but they weren't all like, oh, he just missed it by a fraction. Like the one that he hit was sort of, it goes back to that 2021 season where he was always hitting the toughest shots and not necessarily the easiest ones. Like the one that he hit was like this weird little like sidestep, you know, almost like step back 3-pointer. And the ones that he was missing were sort of like the open ones, you know, the ones that you wouldn't think that he would be missing. But I don't know. I think that the skill set works, and the way that he's been using it is smart. And he is, to your point too, looking to pass out of it again, which reminds me more of 20 to 21 Julius, where yes, he was looking to score a lot, but he was often using the attention he was getting from defenses to feed other guys too. And of course we could talk about him in a minute, but like RJ Barrett was really shooting the ball well in this game. And Brunson has been shooting pretty well, and Brunson has been showing to be really adept too at like what we knew he was adept at, which is, you know, putting the ball on the floor quick and getting inside and, you know, drawing a foul, which he had just an obscene amount of fouls drawn in this game. He wound up with what was his total that you want? 9 of 9 for the free throw line in this game. Yeah. So I mean, he does a great job of, you know, if he gets the ball and can attack a bent defense, he can easily get inside and force his way into some free throws. RJ Barrett can easily, you know, can a 3-pointer, and he was doing that with hands in his face in this game and everything else. You know, he wound up 4 of 7 from 3, but started off really, really hot and looked great shooting the ball. So I really like what Julius is bringing, you know, on both ends of the floor. Like I think he's looked a little better on defense this year too, but pushing in transition, using his ISO smart instead of just sort of hijacking, like everything has been good. Again, it all sort of comes back to, like, I guess the theme of this episode is this could be a tough year between him and Julius, you know, of trying to figure out what to, or sorry, him and Obi, I mean to say, yeah. Obi and Julius, whatever you want. Julius and Julius. But yeah, it's going to be tough, you know, figuring things out with the two of them this year and getting them adequate amounts of play time if they're both going to be playing well like this. Or you might just run into a situation where if Julius is playing well, you might, because of contract situations and everything else, you might just want to entertain moving him and just moving forward with Obi, as painful as it might be if he is playing that well, because it's like, if you can't find enough minutes to get both of them that much time out there, and they're both going to be 2 of your best players any given night, then it's like, you got to find a way to solve that problem, unfortunately. And like, even if Julius is doing everything right with how well Obi is playing right now, to your point, he might not be able to make up that gap and, you know, prove that he's more willing of the minutes or more willing of the spot on the team or what have you. But again, I think it all comes back to the crux of this segment, I guess, for me, is it all comes back to, can Tibbs start using them together finally? And if he could do that, maybe that solves all the problems, because they could both be getting like 27, 28 minutes a game, you know, and just playing some of those minutes together. I think that's a good, you know, use of resources and good use of time, with a little flex one way or the other for either of them, depending on who's playing the best any given night.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. And you know what? There's a world where if they can figure out a lineup with those two and they continue to play the way they have offensively and defensively, maybe the Knicks overachieve expectations this year. If you want to put some money down on the Knicks overachieving expectations this year, there's only one place to go. It's betonline.net. They are your number one source for football betting info this season. You can find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in all your favorite games, events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. And they have NBA futures odds. We've talked about it before on the pod. Your New York Knicks plus 6,600 to win the Eastern Conference. Alex, I saw a graphic on Twitter this morning where they were referencing the 2004 Detroit Pistons, who had 5 players to average over 15 points per game, which the Knicks, maybe we could talk about this next segment, currently have. So if you think the Knicks are the Pistons, I wouldn't go that far, but if you think they're the 2004 Pistons, then maybe go throw some money down because those odds are pretty good. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. And we are back on Locked On Knicks. Third and final segment, Alex. That was all about the power forward position, and a lot of other cool stuff happened in this game. Where do you want to go first?
I think we should talk about RJ Barrett.
Yeah.
You know, the start that he had to this game. You know, he's really making things look easy right now, and you know, I don't think the final shooting numbers for him, like he shot 6 of 15 overall in the game. I don't think that really reflects just how easy he was making things look. Like, you know, in 27 minutes, 18 points, 6 of 15 shooting, 4 of 7 from 3, though. I think that he did sort of take a lesser role as the game went on with the scoring, which I don't think will happen normally. You know, I think he's going to be featured all the time throughout this season. That seems pretty obvious to me. I just think they were trying to, you know, work some other guys in and get some other looks in there. But I love how easy he's making the game look. You know, he's attacking, you know, the defense and getting where he wants in sort of Brunson-like fashion. Like, as I was watching this and then I was watching some of the moves that Brunson pulls off, all I could think was, like, maybe the most beneficial part of this Brunson signing will just be having RJ Barrett play with him every single day. Because if even like 50% of what Brunson does with his footwork and how he gets to his spots, how he finishes shots and everything else rubs off on RJ, it's a worthwhile investment because RJ plays very similar, I feel like, to Brunson and how they achieve what they want to on offense, but just sort of is a bigger version of him. So where, like, you know, if he can eventually build his skills out, the handle, the footwork, the, you know, million different fakes the way that Brunson does, because neither of them play a particularly vertical brand of basketball. RJ has the strength advantage, the size advantage, you know, everything going for him as far as, you know, being able to make more happen with that moveset than Brunson can, just thanks to his physical limitations. So, you know, there was like a Brunson, the one that stood out to me and made me go, wow, in this game was when he like got into the paint and then sort of like did a little pivot and then just hit like a sort of like turnaround fader in the lane. And I was like, oh God, what a crap shot. And then it went in perfectly. I was like, never mind, it's a good shot. Like, I guess this is just what I'm going to have to get used to with Jalen Brunson, that he can take and make these sort of shots on a consistent basis because he's just practiced them so much and has the craft in there. If RJ could work on that sort of craft, I mean, the sky's the limit for him, because I think again, 2 preseason games, we got to see this. Like, the big thing with RJ is especially, like, we have to see this for the first couple months of the season, because that's always been his bad point of every year. It's been the first couple months, like, he can't get it together. And then it's always like right around the new year that he finally like kicks it into gear. And we saw this in his rookie year, his sophomore year, his junior year. You know, every single year he's hitting the ground the opposite of running, hitting the ground flailing. I don't know. And then, you know, eventually gets back up and figures it out and really gets rolling by around January. This year, it looks like he's ready to go from minute one based off this preseason so far. Like, his jump shot is like butter right now. I think our buddy Benji Ritholtz put out a nice little shot comparison the other day that I saw on Twitter that was like, look at how much tighter his release looks. Like, he's getting the ball in faster and releasing it quicker, and it seems to really be positively affecting his shot. And I couldn't agree more. And that's also giving him more ability to get it off in tight spaces without having a shot altered. So if that holds true and he's going to be like like back to being like a 40% 3-point shooter again, with how everything is developed in the rest of his game, we might be looking at what we've been talking about, which is a potential fringe all-star season for RJ, because it seems like with the ball in his hands now, he can pretty much get wherever he wants. And through these first 2 preseason games, I've been nothing but impressed with him.
Yeah, and to your point with Brunson, he's getting to attack a tilted defense, and even a more unselfish Julius. Like I mentioned it twice, but he got 2 just catch and shoot threes, and that was something that, I mean, when he was shooting 40% from 3, it was because he was getting open looks off of crisp passes from a guy who was bullying his way into the lane, drawing triple teams, kicking it out to him. And then last year from RJ, where it had to be just a tad more self-created, and he lost some of what Julius was giving him, like the percentage fell off a cliff. But I almost don't know how much that matters anymore, because to your point, he has the look of someone who just flat out is a very good 3-point shooter in his own right. Like the motion transfer looks just infinitely smoother. Like it looks effortless, when in the past it looks stilted. And the biggest thing with him in the past was just that his mechanics were pretty inconsistent. Like they looked a lot different game to game. I mean, sometimes even quarter to quarter, where it always looked like he was trying to find a shot and trying to find his rhythm. And now it feels like he's put so much work into it that it really is just muscle memory for him. And then on top of that, the other big thing we've talked about in regards to RJ is his playmaking, and some of the reads that are just clearly a big emphasis for him this offseason are coming into play. Like he early first quarter took a screen from Mitch, got a step into the lane, and then just without really much effort, whipped a one-handed lefty pass to the opposite corner to Cam Reddish for an open 3. And look, those are the Luka reads, those are the LeBron reads. Those are the kind of things that you need to see from your alpha wing, your point wing, however you want to frame it. If RJ is going to be the dude on the Knicks, he's going to have to make those passes very, very consistently. And we're seeing it from him now. The other thing I really liked from RJ is, and he talked about this a little this offseason, where he actually this was a great stat from Tom Piccolo, who spoilers is going to come on this podcast at some point to talk about RJ Barrett this week. He pointed out that RJ led the NBA in Kobe assists. And I saw a quote this preseason from RJ about being a little bit more conscientious about how he does that. And he was saying, like, look, with Mitch in there, you just got to throw it up sometimes. He had this play where he got into the lane, drew 2 guys, and it wasn't Mitch and it was Jericho Sims, but all RJ did was literally just like loft a finger roll up. And it was almost impossible to tell if it was a shot or a pass, but it ended up right in Sims' hands. No one was around him, and he just jammed it. It's that awareness of his ferocity and the volume with which he attacks the rim creates easy chances for others, and doesn't always have to look pretty. It doesn't have to be like a slick, like interior slip pass, like behind the back. Like it could literally just be him throwing the ball up. And because of the attention that he draws, that can create dunks for other people. The last thing I'm going to highlight is that running mid-range jumper he had about halfway through the third quarter, where he pulled up. It was kind of Dirk-esque. It was sort of off one foot, and it was just one of the cleanest swishes you will ever see. And just, again, his ability to orient himself in midair, and then his touch is just clearly at a different level than it's ever been at any point in his career. I don't know. That's what you want from your superstar scorer. I'm excited to see how it translates when he's playing 36 minutes instead of 22 minutes, when he's going to have to carry a team taking 20 plus shots. Is all of this going to hold up? That's kind of my big question with him.
Yeah, and one that we'll certainly have an answer to as this season goes on. But luckily, I mean, I think that so far, at least, we've seen good enough versions of Brunson and Randle that I don't know that he'll have to necessarily take that load on all the time, which is nice. And I guess that's the benefit of having, and that's not even to mention Obi, who we opened the show with, who's looked really great, or quickly. Like, I think that is the nice thing. And, you reference the Detroit Pistons, having all the players that averaged over 15 points per game. Like, that is sort of the nice thing with this roster construction. There is a world where none of these guys are an A1 scorer, and they could potentially be a good team. I guess the closest analogy to that wasn't an NBA champion, but still was a number 1 seed, would be like the 15 Hawks? The
Kyle
60
Korver, Jeff Teague, Al Horford.
Yeah, the 60-win Hawks. You know, they had just no real like mega star. You know, like Al Horford was probably the closest thing that they had to like a true star on that team. But like it was Horford, Millsap, you know, Teague, Korver, DeMar Carroll in the starting lineup, which I don't even know if there's like a guy that fits 1-to-1 with Carroll, because I actually think the Knicks, their ideal starting lineup doesn't really have any weaknesses scoring the ball, which is kind of cool. Or at least, like, I shouldn't say no weaknesses, but like no surefire guy that can't hit a shot or like doesn't have like a defined utility. Like I always thought that Carroll was good, but he wasn't like, you know, you couldn't necessarily count on him like on offense. Whereas I feel like every guy in the Knicks starting lineup, if they're playing to their best ability, which, you know, I think like Julius was the sort of the big question mark there going into this preseason. But if he's playing well, you know, Mitch obviously isn't like a scoring threat in the traditional sense of the word, but creates so many opportunities with his offensive rebounding. We saw like how many second chance opportunities the Knicks had in this Pacers game. You know, I think that the Knicks could be looking at a situation where they don't even necessarily need RJ or anyone to be that like alpha guy, at least not this year. Of course, they'll probably need someone like that to elevate themselves to the next level. So I would hope that RJ would get there, or Brunson maybe, you know, finds that gear and gets there. But we'll have to see how that goes. I feel like maybe we should talk about, I don't know who we should talk about. Maybe Cam Reddish at this point. You know, I like Emmanuel Quickley had himself a good game too, but I don't know that there was anything from Quickley that really raised my eyebrows in this game. It was just kind of a pretty good Quickley game. But Cam Reddish was a weird one, because Gavin, I know you said to me pre-show that you were sort of like had some concerns with him, and the shooting line is ugly, like 1 of 7, 0 of 2 from 3. But I thought that he did. I mean, considering he got thrown into the starting lineup with Fournier out for rest, like I thought he did a somewhat admirable job, at least on as far as doing what the team wanted him to do. He had one really tantalizing finish where he went up and under the hoop and just displayed, again, we say this a lot, but like a level of athleticism that isn't really present with the other Knicks guards and wings. I would say is only peer on the team, like pure athleticism wise. I guess peers plural would be Obi and Jericho Sims, but like they're in very different ways, you know, athletic. Like he's just like slithery athletic, where he had that great like up and under there. But I don't know, what were your thoughts on Reddish, like coming back from that injury in game 1 and being able to still play and start no less and play 20 minutes? I mean, I thought that the shots weren't falling, but well, I guess this comes back to what we always say with Reddish, like if he's going to stick, the shots kind of have to start falling. But I thought all in all his process wasn't the worst in this game. But what do you think about Reddish?
Yeah, I didn't think this was a great game for him. I think a lot of it, to your point, is that he's pressing, and again, that is honestly like you want to make an argument that the NBA is hardest for the role players of the world. Like it's such a mind, you know what, to these guys who've been the best player on every level, who've always been the number one or at worst the number 2 option, and then they have to completely reorient their games. And for Reddish, I mean, again, like at least before he got to Duke, he never played a game in his life probably where it didn't make sense for him to shoot the ball at least 20 times and get into a rhythm. And right now he doesn't have that luxury. And it feels like every shot, at least what I'm sensing off of him, is the end of the world. Like it's make or break for him. It's like, all right, I got to hit this if I want to be in the rotation this year. All right, I missed that one. I got to make this one. Oh crap, 2 in a row. All right, this one needs to go in. All right, this one's kind of a bad shot, but I got to show him I could do something. Oh, I missed that one too. And on and on and on. And that's where it gets tough. And to me, the biggest thing with him is his finishing, right? Because like a jumper, like for all but like the best players in the league, is going to come and go on a night-to-night basis. But where you can find consistency, which is what we saw from Brunson in this game, his jumper wasn't falling. And to your point, got to the line 9 times, hit 9 free throws. Reddish last year was, again, on a very small sample size, was like a 90% free throw shooter. So if he can get there with consistency, that's going to give him something to hang his hat on the offensive end every single night. But this play in the first quarter was totally emblematic of his struggles to me. He had this great crossover to get into the heart of the defense, but then instead of going up hard and either jamming it or like getting fouled, he tried to kind of do that up and under, which is sort of a signature move. And to your point, the one he made later in the game, one of the sickest shots I've seen in my life. That was, I mean, athletically, maybe this is, people would say that this is a crazy thing to say. That was almost as impressive as the Obi between the legs dunk to me. It was just completely sick. But he goes to that a little too often. And because he went there, he made it pretty easily for Miles Turner to come in on help side and block his shot. Instead of, I think if he just went up strong between two defenders, worst case scenarios, he ends up at the free throw line. And then beyond that, there were just a couple of times where he lost his head defensively. He lost Buddy Hield once, gave up an open three. He lost Chris Duarte once, gave up an open three. I don't know who this is on because I don't know the scheme, but had a terrible miscommunication with Jalen Brunson, where I think it was Halliburton who ended up shooting a wide open three. I'm pretty sure that one was on Brunson. I don't want to totally put it on Reddish, but it's not just the shots have to go in. He has to do stuff to help out offensively when the shots aren't going in. And I don't really see him figuring out how to do that quite yet.
Yeah, I guess we'll see how that all goes. Gavin, I think we should probably just rapid fire a few guys and just give final observations. I'll give a quick shout out to Mitchell Robinson. I referenced him earlier, but 10 points, 9 boards in 19 minutes, 4 or 5 shooting. Shot 2 of 2 from the free throw line. They played the little video package interview with him where he said the things that he's been working on this offseason were free throw shooting, conditioning, and having a little more of a post game than just dunks, which I think is the way to go for him. So showed a little bit in this game, 2 of 2 from the free throw line. I'll take that. All in all, I just think I definitely see it where the conditioning is kicking in. Like, obviously the circumstances were different last year where he was coming back off that foot injury, clearly came into the season, wasn't in the right level of shape. He was huge. He was beefy as hell, but he just wasn't, in great basketball cardio shape. I don't think that's a concern at all this year. And he still looks, for the standards that he needs to hit, beefy as hell, which is good. And I think that he's going to still continue to hold his own. We saw him obviously with the offensive rebounds in this game too, like prove that he's got that on lock still. He had 4 offensive rebounds, 5 defensive rebounds, which is about his normal split. As crazy as that is, he usually hits about 50-50 on offensive versus defensive rebounds. I really love what in shape and motivated and paid Mitchell Robinson can give this team. And I think that, often there's the case of guys after their contract year, they get paid. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, why is there a drop off? And it's because they got paid. Mitch said it, in his comments that or Rebecca Harlow relayed what he had told her, that he felt really like valued and honored, to have the Knicks re-up him and want to bring him back and wants to like prove them right. And I fully believe that. And thus far, these first 2 preseason games, I've really loved what I've seen out of Mitch, and I hope it's a sign of things to come.
Yeah, I'm totally on the same page as you. I literally wrote that in my notes. I'm feeling really good about his contract because he's doing really everything you could ask out of him. And to me, his chemistry with Jalen Brunson is something that is really standing out early. And that was one of my kind of big questions about Brunson, like beyond just not playing with Luka and not playing with the shooting that Dallas has on the floor. He also had Dwight Powell, who I think is kind of underrated, but is one of the better pick and roll bigs offensively in the NBA, and that he can pop, and that he's very good pacing in terms of when and rolls and when he rolls and how aggressively he rolls and his vertical spacing. But the one thing Mitch has in his game that Powell doesn't is he's just a bigger body. And there was one play where Mitch set a screen and rolled to the rim, and you could see it was partially just because of the threat he is as a lob threat, but it was partially just because of the space his body took up. He came down the lane, and his defender could never leave him. And it led to Jalen Brunson like nailing like a layup that he basically walked into because Mitch's defender was so attached to him and so terrified to leave him. And I was just like, I was thinking like, yes, like that is everything I've ever wanted out of Mitchell Robinson. Now he's a point guard who can finally leverage it. And then one of his last buckets of this game was when Brunson just hit him on this, like it wasn't a complicated pass in any way outside the fact that Brunson saw it quickly and got Mitch the ball quickly. But Alex, we've been begging for that for years now with Mitchell Robinson, saying he loses 6 points a night just because guys see him too late, or cough, Julius Randle sees him, looks him off, and then like shoots like a contested 2. Brunson, there was zero hesitation, zipping the ball to Mitch, credit Mitch to not having the Nerlens hands. He caught it. He finished it easily. And I just think he's going to walk into a couple more easy buckets a game playing with Jalen Brunson. And at the same time, he's creating those for others. And he's being a threat on both ends around the basket and putting pressure on the rim on both ends in a way that I haven't seen him do with this kind of consistency throughout his career. Again, same caveats as always. It's the preseason. We played two teams that don't necessarily have great center play, but I'm excited to see what he can do down the road. And then the last note on him was just Miles Turner tried to blow by him on a drive. Mitch stuck right with him and swatted it. That's what we've been asking for last year. The best of both worlds, the strength to be an offensive rebounder and a presence at the rim, and the mobility to stick with some of the faster bigs and wings and guards in the NBA. And he showed both in this game.
Yeah, and I push back on the Pacers not having great center play either. I think that they have one of the most intriguing and good center rotations in the whole NBA, like with Turner and Isaiah Jackson, looking as good as he did last year. So, I mean, I think it was all power to Mitch as far as that. I think I don't think he got credit for it, but I think he got a piece of an Isaiah Jackson corner three-pointer attempt too. And I don't know that he ever got a block credit for that, but I mean, he's doing all the things that we've ever loved from Mitch right now. I don't think there's anyone else that I really feel the need. Well, no, I think I'm good. I mean,
yeah,
the end of the bench got a little run. Cool. Deuce McBride, I thought, had a pretty decent game. He looks like he's really trying to stake a claim for some rotation minutes. I love that Derrick Rose only got 12.5 minutes again. Like I've been saying this, but I really don't want him to stand in the way of Quickly or even Deuce getting minutes this season. And it's promising to see that at least in preseason, which again, Tibbs has treated preseason as more of a dress rehearsal than a try stuff out period before. Like, it's promising to see that Rose is only getting that amount of minutes. Maybe the Knicks are saying, like, Tibbs, he's always there if injuries hit or something. And, you might get to play him 30 minutes at some point this season, but like maybe keep him on ice until then, so that then, he can just sort of give the team the valuable insight and direction and like the coaching from the roster sort of value that he gives them. So happy to see that Rose is in that sort of role right now. Quickly, I mentioned briefly, but had a good game. It's just, I mean, there wasn't anything that like really opened my eyes. Brunson, the shooting, not fantastic, 4 of 12 overall, but the getting to the free throw line really stood out to me. The fact that he's running the offense the way that he is stood out to me. The fact that he already seems to have the respect of Julius stood out to me, where there was a few times where it looked like Julius was kind of doing his like come to the backcourt and want the ball off the inbound, and Brunson like didn't even look at him, just started running. And then Julius was kind of forced to just like go down the floor and fall on the line. I really like what we've seen out of Brunson so far. I think he's going to be great. I'm not worried about a bad preseason shooting game from him. And he proved that even if he has an off shooting night, he can still really impact the game positively. So I think that's pretty much it for me. And you can bring us home here if you want.
Yeah. The only other thing I want to note is IQ. I just like that there's, I mean, this was an issue his first season and then a little bit of second year, but whatever lack of confidence he had where he'd occasionally pass up open threes, that's completely gone. He's not shy. He's out there thinking that he's Steph Curry at points. And honestly, I'm sure there are going to be nights where that goes in a wrong direction. Like he took a 30-footer and missed it. That was literally just like a pull-up like from the backcourt. And I kind of in my mind, I was like, does Tibbs let him get away with that in the regular season? So there will be some push and pull there. But I honestly, I like him taking those shots. And then the one other play from IQ that I thought was really cool, I mean, you were talking about RJ learning from Brunson. This IQ looked like a Brunson clone on this play where Jericho set a screen for him. IQ took one dribble to the left, spun back right, and Jericho flipped the screen to catch TJ McConnell. And then IQ just kind of smoothly went into a long two. Really nice chemistry between him and Sims. I mean, that's clearly something those two have worked on, but I just like that, like reversing field and still having the footwork and composure to get into his spot and hit a big shot there. And then, yeah, everyone else, there wasn't necessarily like one other guy who stood out. I will just say from a team-wide perspective, again, I hope it carries over. I really like the rotations from Tom Thibodeau and letting RJ stay in the game to play with IQ, Obi, and Hart, because I think that brings out the best in RJ. Like he starts playing really, really unselfishly when he gets on the court with those guys. And you can tell he he probably the last 2 years has watched from the bench a little wistfully. And it's like, oh, all my friends get to have all this fun playing together. And I'm kind of stuck with this starting lineup that just doesn't move the ball. So that was cool. And then another thing Tibbs did was he brought Brunson back early in the game, I think in the third quarter, or rather early relative to the rotation of the other starters, to play with RJ, Cam, Randle, and Sims. And again, it was kind of the starters, kind of a bench lineup, but I like that grouping a whole lot. So I'm hoping for more of that from Tom Thibodeau. Good start for the Knicks this preseason, Alex. Hopefully more good things ahead. Certainly good things ahead on this podcast. A couple of big-time guests this week. We'll let you figure those out for yourself in the future. I already gave away one, but a lot of good content. Season's just 2 weeks away. No better time of the year, so stay tuned for more on Locked On Knicks.